And we're joined now by the AmaZulu King, Head of Communications, Prince Africa Zulu. A very good evening to you, Nkosi Zulu. Thank you so much for speaking to us. If you could just tell us what has been the reaction of Isilo, which he says he still is, that nothing is going to remove him from this process. The president has said he's appealing the decision, but as you hear now that some members of the royal household say they're looking for an investigative committee to look into this matter, how has this been received?
Well, it's business as usual, Tepiso. We received the judgment by Judge Norman Davis, and our aspect studied the judgment, and we came to a conclusion that the judgment was actually directed to the president, as it was addressing some of the concerns that were raised by the other faction on the processes. So it was the issue of the processes, and since it's a president prerogative to also study the judgment and respond accordingly, and the president has just done that. Now there's been a narrative that's been driven that the silence of His Majesty in terms of responding to an appeal is now deemed as maybe sort of by the other party as a sort of an admission of defeat, to say that we accept the outcome as it is. But there's a really serious misunderstanding. His Majesty is quite stable. His Majesty is confident of his cause, that he's born for the throne. The processes were followed, customer processes were all followed. There were so many important people here, critical stakeholders, that were involved in the process. So it was not just a one-day job. There were a lot of meetings that were held. A lot of meetings that they also refused to participate on, and which they could not be forced. Now, just because the same court of another province, which is not even accustomed to, customary law, which is not a court that you will say it understands the customary law perfectly, it has come to this ruling to say the president must set aside this particular decision, and the president is appealing. So him appealing, he must be given a chance to appeal the decision because it's directed to him. There is nothing wrong with the president appealing, and they must stop accusing the president of being a sellout, of trying to divide the Zulu royal family. It's not the president that took the king to court. It is the other faction that took the king to court. Okay. It is other faction that is creating instability.
As you say, the other faction, there is a call now of an investigative committee. Do you understand, according to how it was laid out, whom would be involved and what the authority of this body would be?
It is far too early, even that is also being too excited. The president still has to exhaust his processes of appealing. Only when the president fails in the appeal, then he'll be forced to go back now to implement these resolutions that were ordered to him by the court. But until then, it is really premature to talk about those investigative things. Even then, the president, it is the president's prerogative to decide that who are the experts that he deems are necessary, are real, are relevant to be able to be part of this process. So it's not as simple as the other faction seems to make, because right now they're misleading the community, telling people things that are not correct, that the king has been put aside, is no longer on the throne. The king is on the throne, and there is nothing unstable at the moment. The only thing unstable is these two factions that are out of hand, that are out of control, which we are also hoping that in due time they will be able to come back and join hands with His Majesty in his journey to unite the royal family.
What would make them do that? President Cyril Ramaphosa has called for unity. There have been issues of concern raised about the impact of this court ruling, that it may imbue a sense of uncertainty, of confusion about who really is the head of the AmaZulu nation. So for you, what would bring them to the table to convince them that as per the ruling of the court and in line with the issues laid out, that some customs and traditions were not followed? The issue of legitimacy is valid.
Well, it's very difficult to say that the day will come very soon to have them convinced, because we can understand now that our cousins have been infiltrated. Because ask yourself that how are they managing to fund in the midst of poverty, when Zulu people are so poor, struggling with daily bread and making ends meet, but they've been able to spend millions and millions of money on this cause for a court, and forgetting that also the king may be on the throne, but the throne belongs to the royal family, and the king is ruling on behalf of the Zulu royal family. It doesn't have to be him. All three of them may be competing over the throne. So it's a serious concern that our family members, cousins who are on the other side, have been infiltrated by investors who have some serious interest on African soil and who think that there could never be another time to destabilize the Zulu nation.
Okay,
and
Prince Zulu,
it's some of the information that you need to know.
We've run out of time, but I want to ask you this question. You talk about investors. There's also talk of political destabilization campaigns or some sort of behind-the-scenes work being done to divide the AmaZulu nation. According to your information, briefly if you can, how true is this?
It is quite true. Is that I just discovered that from my own, I've got it from good authority, that some of the funding that has been playing a critical part in this destabilization of the throne, of the crown, is a funding that comes from England. And some of this funding is a funding that is was actually received in the name of helping the Zulu children with education. So that funding apparently has been redirected to implement such evil disunity among other things in the family. Right. So we are continuing to pray that God will prevail. At the end of the day, evil must be defeated.
All right. Thank you so much for your time and bringing up to speed what the word is from the AmaZulu King Mrs. Zulu, following the court ruling and the meeting today of other royal family members on the way forward, that there is Nkosi Prince Africa Zulu, the spokesperson for the royal house.